Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Maverick Med Podcast. We are inspiring international medical graduates one story at a time. And today we have with me no other person than Dr. Ola Van Steen. She is such a vibe. I feel really excited whenever I have to speak to her. And I'm not going to take the wind out of her sail. I'll just allow her to do her own introduction. So tell me, who are you?
Hi, Hannah. Thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure and delight to have met you, come across you, to be talking to you today. So my name is Ola Van Steen. I am a doctor. I used to work as a consultant in the NHS, but I decided to divorce the NHS for a career in travel. My She told you I'm a vibe. I used to work as a consultant in intensive care and acute medicine. So for those of you who know, you know it is very long hours, it is stressful, it is quite the commitment. But I got to a point in my career where I decided, there is more to life. I wanted to have more to life. I actually wanted to live my life rather than just see it kind of like a little bit like a movie screenplay that is just passing me by. So I decided to look for other options and what is it that I can do. And travel has always been something that spoke to me. So when I figured out how I can make money from it, I was like, this is a no-brainer. Let's go. And it's been 5 years, almost 5 years since I started my travel business. But it's been 2 years that I have been completely out of the NHS and doing this full time. So I basically make a living by living.
I like that you make a living by living. I feel jealous. Right. Ola, take us back, all the way back. Did you always want to be a medical doctor? So how did you find your way here?
Not at all. So being a doctor, probably my mum will kill me for saying this, but I'm going to say it. Sorry, mum. She always wanted me to be a doctor. It was her dream. And you know what? Growing up, especially like where I come from, I'm originally from Iraq, like the culture, the vibe, the way that you grow up is like, you do as you're told, basically. And you're either a doctor, engineer, lawyer, or that's it. The family will
Or you're a
disown you.
failure.
You're a failure. Yeah. You get disowned, basically. And so when I grew up and like I finished high school and I got my grades and all of that, and I was like, well, I kind of I did like law, but I was like, I'm not sure I want to become a lawyer and that kind of thing. And then I did like dentistry as well, but for me they were kind of like likes. They weren't like, I really want to do this. And my mom wanted me to be a doctor, but I kind of like had this bit of a rebellion spirit of like, I don't want to be a doctor. Like, I just don't. But then it was like, you have to do as you're told, basically.
Yeah.
So I ended up going through medical school. I did quite well in medical school. And I think that's because, like whatever you put your mind to it, eventually you'll do well in it.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of like, that's what I'm doing. So went through medical school, went through the motions of training. But there was always that thing of like, it's not my dream. It's not what I wanted to do.
Glad you finally found your way in the end, although it was a long, winded journey, but that is where we want to come along with you to find out how this journey went. So you finished medical school in Iraq, and how did you find yourself in the UK?
Yeah, so, oh my gosh, like how much have we got time to talk about this?
Let's
Because
go for it.
So I go to medical school, and for those of you guys who know, Iraq had been through a number of wars already. Like I was born through a war, lived my life through a war, and then when I was in third year medical school, there was the other war, the final war, I would say, that in my opinion, is still ongoing, but we're not going to go there, right?
Yeah.
So that happens, and I'm in my third year medical school, and for about a year or two, you can still kind of like carry on, but there was a bit of turbulence, very, very palpable turbulence, and I lost family members, and it was really
Oh,
difficult.
bless you.
Get to the final year of medical school, and it was like, this is really, really bad. And then I decide, okay, what am I going to do? And my family goes like, well, we're gonna need to immigrate, and we're gonna leave the country. So my family, parents and younger brother, they immigrate and go to Dubai. My older brother, he's working with a company that transfer him up to the north of Iraq, which, if people know, it's a federal state of its own. So I was like, right, okay, let me go and try and see if the universities up there will take me on. So I went up to the north of Iraq. That's my final year of studying medicine, and they did. So it's a bit like an attachment, observership, something like that, till I can finish my final year courses. And towards the end, which was like, we're going to be sitting our final exams.
Yeah.
I literally had about like 2 months of the year. It was like, and final exams, and that's it, we graduate. My home university in Baghdad said, basically, if you want to graduate, you have to come back and sit your final exams in your home university.
In Baghdad.
In Baghdad. And I was like, I just ran away from it because of everything that's happening.
Yeah.
But then I was like, well, I've done 6 years in medicine. I mean, these are 2 months. I'm just going to pack up and go. So ended up going back into Baghdad in the very much heat of the war. Sat my final exams. It was literally, Hannah, like I would be sitting revising. So we had our house and we've got like a big garden. And because of the power cuts that were happening and the fact that it was like June, July, I didn't I wouldn't stay inside to revise because it's very hot. So I'll go out and sit in the garden. And as I'm revising, sitting in the garden, I can see the helicopters kind of like, flying over. So it was that much of a difficult time. But, when you kind of like, it becomes the normal because I've just seen it so much. Not the normal, but I've just seen it so much.
Your body kind of acclimatizes to, you've adapted to where, because I can't imagine even managing to concentrate I can't think. And then, like, even as we are talking, if a plane flies over, I feel quite distracted. So to think that you have that constantly hovering over you, gosh.
Exactly, they're hoovering, and then a bomb goes off in the distance, and you hear shots, and then you run into the house. And I was revising for my final exam, so it was that kind of like, yeah. So finished the exams. I actually survived through the exams. Finished them, and then literally the day after my last exam, I got on a plane and left Iraq. That was the last time I was in my home country or in my home altogether.
Bless you.
Left, went to Dubai where my family had settled, and I was looking for kind of like jobs. And I was like, well, what do I do? I've graduated now. Well, the thing is that we didn't have a certificate to say, I didn't have a certificate to say that I have graduated. It just says.
Which is explainable, given the circumstances, isn't it?
Exactly. And because there was an efflux of doctors like the fresh graduates leaving the country, our Ministry of Education, Ministry of Health, they were like, we're not going to give you your certificates because we want you to serve in the country because we're going to end up with no doctors at all. So then I was in this situation where I have a piece of paper that says I have passed my final exams, but I don't actually have the certificate. I don't have my transcript of records. I just don't have anything else.
I'm with you.
And I was going around in Dubai, hospital to hospital, and going like, well, I need to work. I want to work. What are my options? And then I end up in this program, an internship program, which really is for their 6th year medical students. So here I am, I'm a post-grad.
So you're overqualified for it.
Exactly. But I'm having to do it because basically I don't have any paperwork. And also the system there is either you pay them to do an internship.
Wow.
Now, mind you, this is information from like 12 years ago or something like that.
Yeah,
so
I bet a lot would have changed. Yeah.
It might have changed. It might become more easier for people. But at that time, it was like you either pay them to do that internship. Experience, or they don't pay you. So like you either work for free or you pay them. So I was like, well, okay, I'll take the option that's for free because it's like next to my house. So at least I know my transport expenses is just me walking across, and I'm not paying you. But then again, it's an internship year. I'm getting more experience, that kind of thing. So I did that for a year, and I very quickly realized that I'm not going to be able to build a career here as an IMG.
For a whole year, you did this. Not paid. So it was a bank of mom and dad then?
Yeah. Daddy's credit card, exactly.
Yeah. Gosh.
Living with my parents, bank of mom and dad, and throughout the year. And it's like, it's work. So like I was on calls, I was doing the admissions.
And you weren't being paid. That sounds like a bit of exploitation to me.
Exactly. Yeah. You don't get paid because this is basically how it was. And you know what? Actually, at that time where I was, having immigrated from a war, I don't know like what my prospects are, so to speak. I was, I've literally left my home, left my friends, left everything that was familiar to me. I'm in this new
Gosh.
country. I don't really know people. I'm like, I don't know what to do here. So when I even had that opportunity, I was in that position where I was like, oh my God, I'm just so grateful that I've got something. But now, obviously, looking back at it, yeah, it wasn't the greatest of the options, but it was what I could do with, and it
At
really
that
reminds
time.
me, exactly at that time, and it really reminds me of something that Oprah Winfrey says. She's like, when you're in a difficult place, just think, what's the next best step that I can take? Not
Yeah.
about the ultimate or the best option out there available in the world. So what can you take? So for me, that was the next best step
Option
I
you had
can.
available.
Exactly, because I could either stay at home, do nothing with my degree, forget everything that I have studied basically, and have my options diminish over time, or I just
Yeah.
go for an unpaid job where, yes, I was doing on calls, doing weekends. I was like, on call on the trauma team. When I
Wow.
was rotating in medicine, I was like, on call in medicine and all of that kind of jazz. And I did, and I got my ALS at that time. I did my BLS, and there were some things
Wow.
that came out of it.
So you really did make the best of the opportunity, really. I mean, like you
Yeah,
rightly said, you could have just sat there and moped and moaned about how life has dealt you a bad blow. But out of the bad circumstance, you still managed to actually even do ALS, which is not one of my
yeah,
favorite things, but yeah.
yeah. So you're just gonna have to take the cards that you dealt and make it a winning hand.
Yeah.
So I did that for a year, and throughout that year, I was kind of like, the realization is sinking that it's not good. It's not going to be good for me in my career point now to stay here and build a career. So I was like, okay, what are other options there? So
Yeah.
by that time, my brother, his company had transferred him over from North Iraq to Lebanon. And
Right.
he was there in Beirut, and he told me about the American University of Beirut, and he was hearing great things about it. And he was like, why don't you come and try and see if you can get into this? So I fly over, I ask to meet the dean, and, and I met also with the program director for training for
Right.
like postgrad medics. And I was like, well, this is my story, this is my situation. What can I do? And he was like,
Were
well,
you thinking USMLE at this point?
yes, I
Oh,
was. But then I
right.
decided
Okay.
not to go for it. It was just too
It would have
hard.
been a lot, isn't it? It would have been a
Well,
lot. Basic
okay,
science and everything.
yeah, and I did actually try. I did. I think I had an attempt at the either USMLE 1 or 2.
Oh, gosh.
Um, I did one of them for sure, but then again, when I was trying to do the other one, they said, "Oh, we need your transcripts and your certificate of graduation from your home university," and I was like, "Well, I don't have them." And like,
Yeah.
hello, the
Oh,
war.
no.
So I couldn't proceed further with the USMLEs, and I think that was kind of like a blessing, because really I can't see myself living in America. A, it's too far from home. B, it's very much different. Um, yeah, I think that was a blessing in disguise, although I was kind of like a
Right.
bit upset at the time.
Right.
So then they in Beirut, they said to me, we're sympathetic, we know what's happening in your country, obviously, and we have got entrance exams. So if you sit our entrance exams for our training program
Yeah.
and you go through them, then that's it, you're welcome on the program.
Oh,
So that's a
and what were you
3 year.
hoping to do?
I
Was it
didn't
like,
know. I was just trying to do the next best step. I just didn't know what I was
so it
gonna.
was just a carpe diem. You're just living in the moment, just see what's next in front of me, just one
What's
day at a time. I
exactly,
like
how can
that.
I keep on
I
building
like that.
this? Because
Yeah.
it was a paid program, right?
Oh,
Okay.
good. Yeah.
I still had to kind of like had daddy's credit card for emergencies, but at least this one was a paid one, so I could cover my
Yeah.
personal expenses. It's a 3 year internal medicine training program, which
Okay.
again, throughout everything in medicine, internal medicine was the thing that spoke to me the most. So yes, I didn't want to do medicine, but that one spoke to me. So I was like,
Yeah.
well, this is good. And then I was like, well, you know what? I'll just do this. I'll start and I'll
Yeah.
see what other opportunities are going to come, because I'm very much of that kind of like mindset. Just start doing something and then other doors are going to open up.
Just start doing something.
Um, so I started with that program. So that was 3 years training, and during that's when I was like USMLEs, because everybody there was, you know,
That
the
was the
American.
in thing. Yeah.
That was the thing. And, you know, the professors that were like teaching, mentoring, supervising us, all of that, from Duke, from Harvard, from Yale, from this, from
Yeah.
that. So there was
Yeah.
a very strong, obviously it's an American university, so very strong
Mm-hmm.
relationships with America.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I started doing the USMLEs, but then I hit that roadblock.
Yeah.
And then I decided, okay, what other options are there? So I start to look at the Canadian exams, and it was the same
Oh,
road
wow.
back. I
So
didn't
it's really a checkered path. Gosh, it wasn't a straight one, straight from Iraq to UK. You've really been there, done that. Now I'm keen. Go
been there,
on.
done that, got the t-shirt. Yeah. So when I see people who go like, oh, there's just nothing, and I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure there is something to do. It's just, are you
Definitely.
looking hard enough? Are you willing to do what you feel is
This is
not?
such an inspiration. I told you she was a vibe.
Thank you, darling. So the Canadian exams, they were like a no-no. Then I was like,
Hmm.
well, let me look at the UK, because again, I was when I was much younger. So I'm taking you guys back to like showing my age, back to the 80s.
Hello,
I did.
Grandma.
We did. Hey. We did actually live in the UK for like 4 years. My dad was doing his
Right.
PhD. So I kind
Okay.
of like always had this little bit of a connection, loved England, loved the kind of like and I thought maybe one day I will come back and live here, right?
Mm.
And so I looked at the MRCPs at that time. And although everybody was telling me this is people, not websites and reliable
Yeah.
resources, this is people's opinions, they were telling me, oh, no, you can't do the MRCPs. You have to go and do the PLAPs, and you have to go and repeat stuff and every. And I'm
Yeah.
like, no, I'm reading here on the website and I'm doing my legit research. It's telling me I can sit the MRCPs. So I went ahead during my 3 years of training in internal medicine in Lebanon. I did my MRCP part 1 and part 2, and then did the paces.
So against what was being said in the grapevine, you defied the odds and still managed to take your MRCPs without taking the plub.
Yes, I did it.
Fantastic.
I did it. And
Fantastic.
then I was doing also my research. That's why I tell people, like, when I've researched something, I've researched something.
You've done the hard work yourself.
Done the hard work. Right. So then I found out if I have the MRCP and
Mm-hmm.
I can prove that the last 4 years of my training is
Mm-hmm.
equivalent to F1 to CT2, then I can apply for registrar jobs.
Wow, I didn't know
Right.
that.
Yeah, not a lot of people know that kind of thing. And I was like, right, okay, well, let me do this. So that 1 year in Dubai, that
Mm-hmm.
was like, I'm doing it for free. I'm doing all of the hard work and not knowing how the karma's going to pay me back, if at all. That counted towards FY1.
Oh, wow.
And then the
Yeah.
3 years that I did in Lebanon, that counted towards FY2, CT1, CT2. And because,
Fantastic.
I was working and I was kind of like, dropping it in the bank of karma. I was like doing all of the hard work. And I'm like,
Yeah.
one day this is going to come
Just
back to
leave
me.
it to
One day
be.
that's going to
Yeah.
come back to me. I wasn't one of those people that, when you go and take a job that you don't quite like, and you're always like moping or having the bad attitude, and
Mm.
people just kind of like go like, what's wrong with you, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So then when I went back to my supervisor in Lebanon
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, can you sign this document for me that I have got all of these competencies? And
Yeah.
bless his heart, he did, it was 52 signatures that he had to, like it was that much.
52
Yes.
signatures.
Yes, it
Oh
was
my
that much of a
days.
detailed document to prove that I indeed have all of the competencies. And he sat through it. It was like papers and papers and papers. He did all of the he did all of the paper, I did all of the documents, and then I took it and took together with me passing the MRCP, and I started applying for registrar jobs in the UK. I
Wow.
again applied for like well over 50 jobs, right? Well over.
And which year are we talking about?
This is me doing applications in like 2011. It
Right.
was like
So if you
2011,
if you are an
2012.
IMG out there and you're saying, listen, I've been applying for 10 jobs, and I hear people say that all the time. Oh, Dr. Hannah, I've been applying for, she did 50 something applications. And what came of it, Ola?
2 jobs replied to me.
Oh my
Can
gosh.
you imagine? And you can go
What's that
through
in
all of that.
percentage?
Oh gosh, not even. I don't know, maybe
Yeah.
like a 4, less than a
Yeah. So
5%,
two over
definitely.
50. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. One of them was a cardiology job in Belfast, which was a locum. a latch for a year. And the other
Right.
one was my intensive care 5-year training job. So I looked at it. I liked cardiology throughout, again, my training. It was one of the things that really spoke to me, and I
Yeah.
wanted to do it. And by this point, like when I was in the American University of Beirut, I've done like extra electives in cardiology. I've done
Yeah.
research in cardiology. So like when I got this job, I was like, oh my God, this is so exciting. But it was 1 year. And I had a 5-year training program. And again,
So you had to weigh, isn't it?
you have to be reasonable. I had to follow my head, not my heart. And it was hard.
Yeah.
It was
Can well
hard because I
imagine.
was like, the thing that I enjoy doing, I'm having not to do it because you have to weigh up what is the next best thing of what
The
you've
next
got.
best thing. Yeah.
So then I signed on to do the intensive care. I went for the interview. I actually didn't know what to expect out of the interview. And then they gave me this, I remember this in the, I was talking to someone who was like doing his surgical interviews, and he was doing all of this interview prep. And I was like, I've never done interview prep in my life. What are you talking about? I have no idea what you're talking about. This must just be you, right? But then I didn't realize what the interview stations were going to be. And then I'm in this interview for intensive care, and one of the stations, they just give me like a massive sheet of paper, and they go like, yeah, prepare your like 3-minute presentation. And I was like, what is
Oh my word.
So I
Oh my
literally kind of
word.
like did a lot of it because on the spot and from what experience I've got from before, and I'm like, just put it together, present
So
with
you just winged it.
confidence. Pretty much. Pretty much. Yeah.
I'm not jealous. I don't envy you at all. I mean, to think that the people actually even go for preparatory classes,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you just rocked up and you did it.
I just rocked up, and because like they had sent me the brief of like, you're going to have a reflective practice, and then you're going to have a task
Yeah.
prioritization, and you're going to have but I, again, because I'm coming from a different culture, a different system,
You
you
didn't
don't.
appreciate what it really meant.
Exactly. I was like, the words didn't sink in, and I was like, I don't know. I'm just gonna go. Like
Maybe sometimes ignorance is bliss.
I think so. I think so. And I was like, well, babe, you're here. You know, if you weren't worthy of being here, you wouldn't be here. We've
That's
done
the
a lot.
attitude.
We've done a lot. Channel the confidence. Let's
Mm-hmm.
go. And I think
Good.
also a lot of things for these, a lot of it for these interviews, because again, a few years later, I started sitting on these interview panels.
Mm-hmm.
And the
Mm-hmm.
things that we actually look at, it's not how much you know. It's actually how it's the other things. How do you present yourself? Do you have the confidence? Do you acknowledge that you've got
Mm-hmm.
limitations? Do you have the
Mm-hmm.
basic common sense? Are you someone that I want to work with?
Yeah, and you know, like you said, your limitations, when to ask for help.
Yeah. So those
Yeah.
are the things that we actually mark when we're going for when we look at when we're doing interviews and we look at candidates. It's not like, can they read the ECG? They can learn that. It's fine. They can learn that stuff, but it's the whole holistic of human communication skills that we actually looking at. So go through the interview, and I come out, and like I was like, when I went in, I was like, oh my God, there's a lot of people. And I do the interview not really
So where did
knowing.
you have your interview? I had my interviews at the Etihad Stadium, and I had
Yeah,
never been there before, and I found the whole environment really intimidating.
yeah.
So I had gone wearing just a pair of slacks, and then I saw these gentlemen with a 3-piece suit, and I was thinking, oh my God. Oh my God. But because I mean, no, I didn't expect that. So how was your experience? Where did you have it?
I had it in Birmingham. I can't quite remember where it was in Birmingham. I think it was something like either a stadium or a big conference center, because it was a very
Yeah.
big building, very
With lots of
intimidating.
people. Very intimidating.
Yeah, lots of people, and people coming in with like, those box files of their prep
Like a
review
portfolio.
notes, a portfolio of stuff. And I'm like, I just got my handbag. Like, what's going on? Like,
A
yeah.
little lipstick inside.
So I was like, yeah, saying that I was unprepared was an understatement. So when I was looking at everybody, and I was like, oh my God, I'm like, I don't know how this is going to go. And then I walked out of the interview, and I was like, well, I don't know what's going to happen. So then and by the way, at this time when I did the interview, I literally had to, because I was still working in Lebanon, it was my final year, I had to
Right.
juggle so many swaps to create that 5-day emergency leave. because I had run out of my annual leave, and they're very strict in the American system. And we used to do like on calls every third day. So you can imagine, to free up that much, how many swaps I had to go to. I only had 5 days, flew into Birmingham, did my interview, fly out back to work. And I just kind of like, I went back to work and I was like, right, just carry on with the motions and we'll see what's going to happen. They were prepared to offer me, they were actually offered me a cardiology fellowship in Lebanon, and they were prepared to wait for me until my results from the interviews in the UK came back.
Oh, that's kind.
And yeah, it was really good. But then it got to this point where I'm not hearing from the UK and they need an answer, because if I say no, they need to give it to someone else.
Fill the slot, yeah.
Yeah, they're going to have to fill the slot. So I kind of like got into that point where there was the pressure. But because I was an IMG, you don't hear immediately following the interviews. They have to roll it out to everybody else in the European Union, and then they come round to you. So I'm like bottom of the pile here. And I'm like, I don't know when I'm going to hear from them. I don't know when I'm going to hear from them, you know. And then I got to a point where it was like, I'm avoiding the cardiology consultants when I go around on the wards. Because I was like, oh my God, I don't want to see you, and kind of like have to ask you to wait and all of that.
Yeah.
So that was like about an awkward week or so of my life.
Yeah.
And then I hear back from the UK. They were like, we're offering you a national training number, 5 years, intensive care, welcome on board.
And this was pre-Brexit, so I'm just trying to paint the picture. So it had to be home students first, and then everybody else from Europe, and then the rest of us.
And then the rest of us, yes.
So congratulations. It was no mean feat.
Thank you. Well, yeah, I didn't feel it was one. So that was, so then the job starts in July 2012 or June 2012. August. August is the intake. August 2012, the job starts. So I finished in Lebanon June 2012. So I literally went back to Dubai for 2 months. And my mom was like, "Oh, don't want you to go to the UK. You're going to be on your own. There's no family there. There's no." And my dad was like, "No, let her go. Let her pursue her career. All of that." And then I was like, packed my stuff into 2 suitcases. Flew over to the UK, to Manchester, not knowing a soul, and stayed in the hospital accommodation to start with. I literally arrived 5 days before the job started. And in that 5 days, I was like, trying to unpack, trying to figure out where the supermarket is, trying to open up a bank account.
Get groceries. Oh, gosh.
All of that kind of like, trying to settle in. And then the first day I go to work, go to like the orientation, and then like people are just talking, and like my English is pretty good, Hannah. Like
it is.
don't wanna blow my own pipe or like horn like they say, but I'm pretty good with speaking English. But I landed in like there, and they're speaking a dialect that I'm like,
what is this?
What is this? I can't understand a word of what they're saying to me. And I was like, oh my God, this is very stressful. I'm like.
What was the reaction for them? Did you get the looks?
Yes, they thought that I've come from Mars, like literally. And it really doesn't help, to be honest. It really does not help. And I think if anybody who's listening to this and you're not an IMG, guys, just be kind. Like, you literally have absolutely no idea what that other person is going through. Looking at them like they've come from Mars or treating them like that does not help. And
because when you're outside the UK, people would say, oh, this person has a British accent. But when you live in the UK, you realize there is no universal British accent. People from Yorkshire speak differently. People from Birmingham have different accents. If you move further up and you go to Scotland, it's a different ballgame altogether, So please, just be kind, because it's English, but it's a different dialect.
Yes. It's very different, and like there are expressions or idioms, and it's very, very different. And I mean, like anybody who's an IMG and coming over here, you just be like, kudos, you speak a second language in the first place, because we all have our native languages, but we still made the effort to learn English. Yes, it may not be native level or highly experienced level, but we're still speaking the language. And I think just that is like kudos. We've left our countries, we've left our homes. There are some people who come with their young family. Yeah, there are people that are coming in and trying to settle their families in, and
Yeah.
and they've got kids, and the kids don't have lost their friends, and it's just really hard. It's really
It's
hard.
quite overwhelming, to be honest, and recently I've been seeing more of a trend of seasonal affective disorders, and I realize it's more among the immigrant groups, because if you've come from a really sunny tropical area and then all of a sudden at 4 p.m. it's dark, it's hard to wrap your mind around it. They go to work, it's dark, they come back, it's dark. And there's a change. There are no friends. The food is expensive. I mean, it's easier for you to buy a fish and chip than to eat something that is your native. So it's just really overwhelming. And to add work to it as an extra layer. Gosh. So how did you go about yours?
Just do the next best thing. That was literally it. So that first year of mine, I was actually put into an anesthetic rotation. So I've done
internal medicine.
Yes, I've done internal medicine all my life. I'm like at the top of my game in internal medicine, really good at it. And then I come and get put into an anesthetic job with never done anesthetics before in my life, and my ID badge reads ST3 anesthetics. So anybody who sees me goes like, right, we've got an like the first day I was put on the emergency theatre list. Can you imagine the madness? Imagine the madness. First day of my after the induction, first day of work, emergency theatre list, and I just I rocked up early because I was like, don't know what to expect. I'm going to be there early just so that and someone walks into theatre and sees me, the only person standing there, and looks ST3 anesthetics. They go like, right, we've got an emergency appendix. Let's crack on. And I'm like, crack on with what? Because the last thing I cracked were walnuts, not an appendix. Right, so I'm not...
I mean, today we can laugh about it, but it's not funny.
No, it wasn't funny at that time. No. It was not funny at that time. And I was like so super nervous because don't know what's happening. The consultant that came to work with me on that day they didn't know me, and they didn't know that I have literally just flown into the country, into this job. And it was just really hard. And I had to explain. I was like, listen, I'm really good, but this is all very new. And they were just looking at me like they're weird. And I was like, I'm a quick learner, so I will learn.
I'm glad you found your voice in the situation and were even able to speak up, because for many international medical graduates, some people struggle to find their voice. I mean, they would cower, they would cry, and they wouldn't use their words.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that
there were tears. There were tears, Hannah. Don't get me wrong. There were days like I would go and cry at home because I was like, this is just so hard. And for the longest time, I didn't quite understand why I was going home and just being so tired that I have to fall asleep. I didn't quite understand. And I thought there was something wrong with me. And then I realized it's the anesthetic gas.
Oh, gosh.
I'm breathing sevoflurane.
Gas in the air all the time.
And the sevoflurane and the isoflurane, and I'm breathing this all day. And then I'm going home and just feeling so shattered. Out. Yeah. And I'm feeling so self-conscious. And yes, that I had those times where I was like, I will learn this. I'm a quick learner. How do and asking for help kind of moment. But then a lot of it was like, what's wrong with me? Why is this happening to me? What's wrong? Am I ill? Do I have something? And then I realized it's the anesthetic gas. And I was like,
oh gosh.
But it's just those things that you just don't know. You don't know until you know.
Yeah.
It was hard. I've had some people who became my really good friends. I mean, the college tutor, shout out to Dr. Mirza. He was just absolutely amazing. He was like a second father to me. He was incredibly supportive. But then I also had...
Was he an IMG himself?
Yes, he was. Yes.
Right.
He was.
Right. But so at least somebody understood you.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. And he kind of he was like, he sat me down after my first, I think after the induction or after my first week. And he was like, right, what's going on? What do you need help with? Tell me your story.
Bless him. Yeah.
And that really helps a lot because you feel heard and you feel seen.
And that's the power of storytelling, isn't it? Having someone to just give you the platform and say, listen, what's happening?
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, because we don't realize, like, we've got so many IMGs that come and work with us. And, like, for example, when I was an intensive care consultant, we'd have a lot of IMGs coming over, mainly from India. And, like, they're top of their game at their home country. They're consultants, but they're
I
having to
know.
come here and work in a junior grade. And they, it's quite easy. If you're not an IMG who's gone through that experience, it's quite easy to go like, oh, they're just a junior person. But like when you sit with them and listen to their story and you go like, oh my God, you're like probably even more qualified than me.
Absolutely. And it can leave you with a lot of self-doubts, because now you keep on questioning yourself and you're just thinking, what am I even doing here?
Yeah. What am I even doing here? Exactly. So I had a few supportive people, made a few connections, but then equally on the other hand, I had some people that made it their mission to make my life miserable, and I don't know why.
Tell me about it.
Exactly. I'm like, sorry, do I know you? Like, what's going on here? But I mean, at that time, it's always upsetting. But then afterwards, when you kind of like reflect and when you personally develop so much in life, you just realize that hurt people hurt. And
Hurt
here,
people hurt. Yeah.
hurt people hurt, and it's just someone who was going through a terrible phase probably in their life, and they just needed to take it out on someone else. And at some point I was that someone else, and I had a lot of kind of like a lot of, what's the word, well, the lack of good words, racism, lack of
Say
other
it as
words
it
for it.
is.
Yeah,
Say it as
exactly.
it is.
A lot
Tell
of
me, Ola, did you at any time wear a hijab?
Yes, well, that's what I was going to come on to, is because I used to wear the hijab, I used to wear the headscarf.
Yeah.
And for me, I was like, I never thought it would be a problem. And I think that's just my own naivety, so to speak, or me treating people based on their actions, not based on their looks. And someone just kind of like made it their mission, and they were a manager, so they had some clout, so to speak, and it
Yeah.
made it their mission to single me out and to make me feel very uncomfortable and to kind of like call me out under the whole premise of infection control kind of like policies, and go like, oh, why, and trying to get me to a point where I would either decide not to show up anymore for the job or to actually take it off. And I was like, whoa, this is
Wow.
just extreme. I'm like, I'm just a regular girl who's just come here to try and make her life better.
Mm.
And I'm really trying my
Mm.
best. And I don't understand why you've kind of like picking a bone with me. And it was
And
hard.
did
It
you have
was
any allies or sponsors? I mean, someone to speak up for you, or did you have to just use your own voice?
so quite good. I had people who supported me, and then they would listen and they would be like, yeah, it's not you, and and offer that kind of support.
Good. Good.
But nobody would
Good.
actually stand up to the bully.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, I think.
And I think it's a common finding. I mean, this goes beyond IMGs. I mean,
Yeah.
generally at work, people are quite scared to stand up
Yeah,
to the
yeah,
bully.
yeah. People are very, very scared, and I'm just, as I'm telling you this, I remember there's this little video that went around on social media of like this professor walking into a class that he teaches, and he just singled out one person that hadn't done anything wrong and told her off and asked her to leave the class. And then after she left the class, he was asking the classmates, I was like, what is that? What I did, was that right? And everybody just said, tried to be very political about how they replied
Yeah.
to him.
With
And
a
then
lot
they were
of
like,
buts.
exactly. And then he just said, I was teaching you a lesson out of this. And he brought that girl back in and apologized and everything. And he was like, I'm teaching you a lesson, because if you don't stand up to an oppressor, then that same thing is going to happen to you one day. So I very difficultly had to find my voice and go like, well, what you're telling me is actually not in line with the infection control policy. And this is what I
Yeah.
am willing to do to be a team player. And this is what I can't do. And actually, well, I didn't say it, but basically, pretty much, in other words, I pretty much said, you can't make me do it. So it was then the rest of the year was very kind of like stressful, avoiding each other kind of thing, and kind of like you go
I mean, on top
extra.
of everything else that you have to go through, getting your driver's license, getting a bank account and everything, and then you have to deal with somebody on a one-on-one basis. It
Yeah.
must have been hard.
And then you have to go above and beyond in, I'm not going to do a mistake because I don't want it to be held against me.
Oh, yes, I need to prove myself.
I need to prove myself, yeah. And
Yeah.
so that first year was not a picnic in any standards, to be honest. And a lot of the time I just questioned, like, what am I doing? Why don't I just go back home? Like,
No.
this is hard. But equally, I had that voice in my head of like, well, we have to keep on going. If, you would never be given an opportunity unless you are good enough for it, unless you're strong enough for it, and unless it is your right position, your right place at the right time. And I really strongly believe on it. And I'm going to come on to the story of me moving into travel, because that opportunity came at a time that was against all odds. But I truly believe that an opportunity will never come to anybody unless it's the time for them to take it. So carried on, did the second year training in intensive care. That was a little bit better because it got medicine. The culture in intensive care is different. They're a bit more friendly. There's more teamwork. It's not just you in the theatre on your own. So that was a tad better. Started to have more friendships. Start to, I know what they mean when they say things, and the language started to clarify.
You caught on with things.
Yeah, got on with it, kind of thing. And then I decided to apply, because then at that point they were like, you can dual accredit intensive care and something else. So I decided to apply to acute medicine.
Because your life was not hard enough.
No, exactly. It wasn't. I was like, let's add on another challenge. Come on, let's go. So I interviewed for acute medicine. At that time, I did prepare for the interview.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
Did actually prepare for it. And that one was in the interview was in Bolton, north, like up from Manchester, in like a big stadium as well. Again, quite intimidating, a lot of people. And I was having some problems around the paperwork around that time, because they were telling me, oh, we can't accept your paperwork. And I'm like, well, I'm already in a job, so it's not like I'm coming from overseas. I'm already training. So they're trying to iron it out. And I remember my program director for intensive care at that time was exceptionally helpful and was making phone calls and everything. And it all got sorted, got into an acute medicine training job, did the whole motions of, the exams for the
Did it mean more training time?
Yes, it did. It was a year and a half extra. So it was a total of 6.5 years of registrar training. Yeah.
I'm not doing that.
I know. But then at that time I was thinking, and this is advice that I give to a lot of resident doctors now. I say, when you do become a consultant, you're going to be that for 30, 35 years of your life. So it doesn't matter if you take a gap year. It doesn't matter if you prolong your training maybe by a year or two. I think triple accreditation is a bit too much.
Yeah.
Because now we have people who can accredit in 3 things. And I'm like, that's probably a little bit too much, because how are you going to maintain your revalidation?
Yeah.
And your appraisals and all of that. That's going to be really making your life hard. But if you've got something like a passion project or something that you want to take time out to go and do it. That 1 year or 2 years is going to be nothing in the grand scheme of things, because
absolutely. So take me, for instance. I took 6 years to do a 3-year GP training, and I had 2 kids along the line. And to be honest, I wasn't really happy that I was pregnant for my second one, because I thought, oh my God, everybody's just finishing. All my friends are already GPs and I'm still at GP training. But now in retrospect, I wouldn't have it any other way, So please, if it's not a simple run through like you planned, just enjoy the process, because at the end of the day, we all become consultants or GPs in the end, and no one really asks you, how long did you spend in training?
No, they don't. And again, that's all experience and life experience and life skills that is adding to your
character building
skills and your personal development, your character building and all of that. So it did. I knew it was going to prolong the training, and I was fine with that. I went through the whole motions of training and did my exams, and you have obviously now 2 sets of exams, because I've got the fellowship for intensive care
and ARCP for different ones, or was it 1?
2. So you'll ARCP for intensive care, and then when you're training that year in intensive care, and then you'll ARCP for medicine when you're training in medicine for that year. But what I didn't quite understand is that you have to redo some competencies when you're in medicine.
So more like a repetition of itself.
Yeah, because I remember my first ARCP, actually this is a bit of a funny story. So my first Hannah's like,
I like stories.
give me the juicy stories.
I know.
So I had done my ARCP for the anaesthetic year. That was done. Then
Yeah.
did a year in intensive care training. Did the ARCP for that. That was done. Then I went into training a year in medicine. And I came up to the ARCP for that one. And two of the competencies out of the, I don't know, God knows how many 100 competencies that we needed, was managing an unconscious patient and management of an anaphylactic shock, right? To which I had like linked competencies from intensive care. Because I mean, like for a year I was doing anesthetics and then a year I was doing intensive care. I can manage an unconscious patient. Like,
I bet you could.
it was part of the definition. And then I have done so much around anaphylactic shock as well. So I linked those, and I went to the ARCP for acute medicine, and I was like, I've got this puff in my chest because like I'm gonna ace this. I've got everything,
Yeah.
And then, to my very big surprise, I was sat there in front of the ARCP panel. That was back in the day before COVID, when you'd actually go and see your panel.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of them, they were like, one of the consultants was like, well, you've not ticked these two competencies. And I'm like, I have. That's the evidence. They were like, no, that's from your ICU portfolio. You need to do it in your medicine
I'm the
portfolio.
same person.
Yeah, I was like, I'm the same human being. I trained like the 2 years. I was like, I can't understand it. Like the logic, I just could not understand the logic. I was like, so if I'm in intensive care today and I manage an unconscious patient, then tomorrow I'm in medicine. Do I have to be like, oh no, I have to learn about this all over again, and I have to? I was like, no, I'm like competent here.
It's just the mindset, isn't it? Because for some people, it's just a proper tick box exercise, and then you need to have gone through everything. It's a shame. I mean, I hope going forward, our tutors and educators begin to see that we are holistic human beings, and sometimes experiences can be brought from different places. So
absolutely,
it's a shame.
I mean, like, it's fair to say that I walked out of that ARCP absolutely livid because they didn't give me outcome one, although I ticked all of the boxes. And this is a message to all of you guys out there listening to this. Even if you don't get that outcome one, it's not going to affect your training. Just keep on carrying on. But
I think someone needs to hear that.
Yeah.
Because I was an outcome one person, I had to be outcome one or nothing, Yeah. It was like outcome one or suicide.
Yeah. Because we take this quite seriously, don't we? And
we do, yeah, because we've worked hard for it.
Yeah. And it's also a message to everybody who sees like people who have achieved so many things in their life. It wasn't always roses. You did have opposition. You did have people who didn't like what you were doing. You did have people that were trying to bring you down. You did have people that gave you, like, I can't remember what it was. Is it outcome 2 or something? That I basically had 2 weeks to go and do the competencies and come back again to the panel. Now. I can't remember the number now, but it wasn't outcome 1. And I was like, You
had to do it. I have one of the questions I was going to ask you about one of your greatest failures, but I think with you talking about ARCP, you've done it. You've ticked that box, really.
We've covered that.
So tell me, Ola, why would you go through all this and give it away for travel?
Yeah, well, I mean, travel is an amazing thing. That's the But then, so you can imagine with all of this, the war, relocation, helicopters, doing the exams, relocating countries, finding the place, finishing my when I finished my training, and I was like, now I can breathe.
Finally.
Now I can breathe. And every IMG would relate to this. You've got your CCT.
Did you go for your graduation ceremony?
Where? Do you mean?
Did you go for your Royal College ceremony, the gown in and all that? Did you do it? Because some people don't.
I don't.
Oh, she has to remember.
I have to. Yeah, I don't think I did.
I don't think you did, because if you did, you would have remembered.
Yeah, I remember the MRCP one didn't have a gown for that. But no, I don't think I did. No, I don't think I did. No.
Did you know? I don't think it's too late. I think you can probably. Oh no, it's too late.
I don't want to.
I think you need. Do you not want to? Oh gosh.
I don't miss it. I don't miss it. I'm like literally
Oh,
so
it's a
done.
proper divorce then you've
It's a
had.
proper divorce, and I won the settlement, Hannah.
Oh,
I won the settlement. That's all
so
I want
how
to
are you
say.
getting your alimony? Tell me about it
So,
from my travel.
in royalties from travel. That's what I'm getting. So yeah, so I got to that point where I was like, oh my god, I can breathe now. I've got my CCT. I've got
Mm-hmm.
my passport. I've got my British passport
Mm-hmm.
now. And I was
Yeah,
like, I can breathe. I can breathe. I can start to
finally.
feel like a bit more of a normal human being, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're an IMG, you know what I mean.
I'm
And
with
then I
you.
was like, I interviewed for a consultant post at that point
Mm-hmm.
because, again, it was one of those things where I was in this point where I wanted to do something different. I had that pull, but equally, I didn't know what it was. And I had this great opportunity to do a consultant job at a place that I
Mm-hmm.
really enjoyed working at. So I was like, right, okay, so what's the next best step? Instead of me just staying in limbo, let me apply for this, but I'll keep my eye open. So
Yeah.
I did apply. I went traveling for about 5 months. I had an incredible time. I went to Spain, Germany. I went to Iceland. Then I went
Wow.
to Japan, China, Singapore,
Mm.
Thailand, Hong Kong, Malaysia,
Mm.
Bali. And during all of that
Oh my
time,
God.
as I was traveling and exploring and just kind of like soaking it up all in and
Yeah.
sleeping. I was sleep.
Sleeping. Yeah, because training, you become sleep deprived.
You do. It's incredible, isn't it, of how much a
Yeah.
toll it takes on your body. And
Mm-hmm.
during that time, also, I met who is my husband now. Obviously, at that time,
Ka-ching.
little did I know that I would like end up getting married. But we did, and we had an incredible time traveling together.
Yeah.
Went to Croatia. I always say, like, he used to take me. So he's Dutch and he's from Holland, and I
Mm-hmm.
lived in the UK. So when he takes me out on dates, he will take me out to a different country.
Oh
Um,
wow, that is an exotic relationship.
Very exotic, and I absolutely loved it. I'm like, I'm here for it.
Yes, let's do it.
I was feeling like karma was paying me back, for
Oh
all of those
yes,
years.
yes.
Finally. And then yeah, and then came back from my travels. I was like, I'm none the wiser on what to do next.
Mm-hmm.
I've looked into lots of options, like the usual, the pharma, the health tech, the research,
Yeah,
the all of
yeah.
that. And I was like, none of it is speaking to me, and I don't want to jump out of one frying pan into another frying pan.
Mm-mm.
I need to go back to the job because the money was running out.
Mm-hmm.
Start the job and I'll see, keep my eyes and my ears open and see what will
Yeah.
happen. And then about a few months later, it was my birthday, and a friend of mine said to me, "I'm going on this group holiday. Come with me." And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure I want to do that because it's not quite my vibe. And
Mm.
then she ended up convincing me. Went on the holiday. Long story short, it was shambles. Absolutely hated
Ooh.
it,
Ooh.
but it gave me the light bulb moment that this is what I want to
Right.
do.
And that is you, wasn't it? You just meditate situations around.
Yeah. I was like, well, this is the answer. This is what I want to do. I can do this better. This is what
Mm-hmm.
I want to do. So I embark on my journey of researching how can I become a travel agent? How can I set up a travel
Right.
business? And I start to look into what's available out there. You need to get the license, you need to do your marketing, you need to do this and that. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
someone that I did not have a business bone in me. I mean, guys, like you've been listening, everything that I have told you about, I've never done business.
It's
It's all been,
medicine.
yeah, the life challenges of medicine and living life
Yeah.
of an IMG. So I was like, I don't have a business bone in me. I don't know how I'm going to do this. It was going to
Mm-hmm.
be like 12,000, 14,000 pounds to just get the
Wow, that's steep.
licenses. Very steep to get the licenses and to get set up. So I was like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know, but I'm going to still keep an eye open. So I keep on
Right.
doing the research, and then one day I come across a company that basically is a host agency that allows average people just like me go and set up an online travel agency. They give you the website, they give you the tech support, they give you the training, and they give you
Mm-hmm.
access to a travel booking platform, and then you can book travel and you can earn commission from it. I
Oh
was like,
wow.
that's interesting. I want to do that. So
Yeah.
I tried to figure out how I can get involved. And they say, well, this operates on a referral system. So you need to know someone who is already doing this business in order for them to refer you in. I was like,
And did you know
well,
anybody?
no, I didn't.
Wow.
So I was like, well, how am I going to find out who's doing this? Because I just don't know. Then I was speaking to my dad about all of this, and then he goes like, well, you've been traveling for like about 5, 6 months. You've got a
Mm-hmm.
lot of content. Why don't you just start sharing your travel stories?
Oh, putting
Yes,
yourself out there, isn't it?
exactly. He was like, just do something along those lines. You never.
So, Ola, you had to put yourself out there.
Yeah, because my dad was like, you never know what's going to come out of it. And I was like, you know what? It's true. And if this is the only next best step that I
Thing.
can take,
Yeah.
then I'm going to take this. So I start writing out like a little blog, and
Yeah.
I put my travel stories and my travel pictures and all of that, and I started posting them on Instagram. And
Wow.
along comes a lady who's talking about travel and traveling the world and making money from it. And I was like, hold on a second, who are you? What is this whole thing about making money from travel? I want to know. So I actually messaged her. And she was like, well,
Right.
I'm affiliated with this company and I'm a travel agent off the back of it. And this is what I've been doing. And I was like, oh my God, this is the same company that I wanted to work with.
And to think that you could have just been in your head, I mean,
Mm,
and it would have been an idea for many years and
yeah.
you would never have come out.
Just do the next step, because I see so many, like I've got so many doctors who come into my inbox now and they're like, oh well, I don't know what to do and this and that, and I'm researching, and I'm like, you're going to spend a whole lifetime. Just do the next best
Just
thing,
do it.
even if you think this is not gonna, I don't know how it's going to work out. Just do something, because that's going to lead you
Yeah.
to the next step. So this travel blog, which by the way failed miserably, but
Ooh.
it connected me with this lady that, and I
So
ended
it
up,
served its purpose, isn't it?
yeah, its purpose
Hmm.
was not to be, I'm the next
A big
world
time,
blogger.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm not
But
going
it
to
was to
be.
lead you to
It,
the next one.
it
And
opened
it's
up
done that.
the next door, and
Yes.
it served that purpose. So I never regret doing anything. And this is the thing that I
Hmm.
say to people: I'd rather regret doing something than rather than not doing at all.
Yeah.
But actually, I don't regret doing something, because it's always putting me in a place to take me to the next best thing. So yeah,
Because at the end of the day, it's the opportunities we don't take that we actually regret on, isn't it? It's those missed opportunities because we're
absolutely.
too shy, we're too timid, we're overthinking it.
I'm not good enough.
Those are, yes, I'm not, oosh, yeah, that one.
Yeah. I don't have the skills. It's
Ooh,
it's incredible of how many people hold themselves back. But I'm like, I truly, 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 truly believe an opportunity would never come unless you are prepared for it. And something that Sir Richard Branson says is, when you get an opportunity, take it, then figure out how you're going to make it work.
that's it.
So that's what I did, because I was like, I don't know business, right? I just know that I like traveling, and this is a
Yeah,
cool idea, and the risk is negligible and the benefits are very high. You know what?
yeah.
Let me take it
I'll
and then
take
figure
it
out.
and I'll figure out how.
I'll figure it
That's
out.
it.
I
That's
take
it.
it. It's April 2020, and we go into national lockdown.
Oh no.
Yes. But again, if it's not meant to be, it wouldn't have come my way.
Mm.
Again, guys, I kind of like totally believe in it. So I was
Yeah.
like, okay, what's the best thing that I can do now? The best thing is I can learn about business.
Mm.
I've not done it before. Let me listen to all of this training. Let me look at the webinar. Let me
Mm.
integrate with my, like, get onto the training calls, get onto
Hmm.
speak to my mentor in business, get to
Yeah.
kind of like know the ropes. Let me trial and error. Let me,
So even in the midst of the COVID, you just made the best of the moment instead
yes.
of just whiling away the time.
Yeah, because
That's brilliant.
they always say, like, at a time of a crisis, you either find an opportunity or you find a misfortune. So I was
Hmm.
like, it's a good time for me to learn, to test, to see if this is actually really what I want to do.
But no one is traveling during the COVID.
Nobody's traveling, but everybody was on the travel throwbacks wagon.
Yeah,
So then
true.
I
We
was,
missed it. We
yeah,
missed it.
it's it. So I was like, okay, no, this is a good opportunity. I've still got all of my travel stories and travel
Hmm.
pictures. Let me
Yeah.
start posting this. Let me start building up my personal brand, because this is very
Personal brand.
important, having that online
Yeah.
presence. Let me trial and error. Let me see what works and doesn't work. And it drives me off the wall when I see people who go like, oh, you know what? I'm just going to wait until I perfect my niche, until I perfect my
And
process.
that has been my stories. And I mean, for 8 years, I've just been saying, "Ugh, I'm not sure about this. I don't want to put myself on Instagram. Oh, my consultant is on LinkedIn. I don't think I want him to know what I'm thinking, you know. So please just
No.
put yourself out there, because
Put
you,
yourself.
I never would have met you, Ola, if I didn't put myself out there.
I mean,
So
you see?
yeah,
You see?
definitely.
And I've met the most incredible human beings just by putting myself out there and connecting to people and just saying, hey, I like what you're doing. This is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And, that just opened up so many opportunities for me. So then I took
Yeah.
the 3 months from like April till about July, where we were not allowed to travel, to do all of that. So when we came out of the
Yeah.
pandemic, I actually already had one trip for me, two trips, sorry. One trip that I immediately went on, another
Yep.
trip that I had booked in the future for me. My friend was ready to book her trip with me, so I got another travel
Oh,
booking.
wow.
And then I also had 6 people who said to me, Ola, we love what you're doing. We want to do it too. So now I was,
And I bet with you having this in mind, you weren't quite sullen during the COVID.
yeah,
You had something to look forward to, wasn't it?
exactly. So you have that thing of like, I'm looking forward towards the future. It's not just me, social isolation. I'm on my own, coming back home, don't get to speak to anyone, don't get to see anyone, etc. You're not just sinking in that. I was actually coming back home and very excited to turn my laptop on because I'm
Bless
going to
you.
look at the trainings. Oh my God, there is this amazing Marriott training, an amazing Hawaii training, and all of these things that I can
And
do.
as an ICU consultant during the COVID, gosh, it must have been crazy.
It was, well, I mean, and I think that was another thing really that kind of like gave me that extra wake up call, because I was
Yeah.
seeing people half my age die of a disease that we didn't know how to control or even how to manage at that time. And that was pretty scary. And it was like the amount of, and again, I say this to people when they say, oh, I've got a lot of things on my hand or I don't have time. I was like, I was at a time where I was emotionally, mentally, physically, completely exhausted, and it was COVID
Yeah.
and nobody was traveling, but I still made a travel
Yeah.
business work. It's a matter of mindset.
Absolutely.
So I was actually flipping it. I was like dealing with death every day during the day, and then I'll come back, open up my laptop, and just look forward to life. And for
Wow.
me, even if the money aspect from the business is into account, for me that in itself was a massive win.
That's it.
That was a
That's it.
massive win. But I came out of the pandemic actually having made money from the travel business. It was small to start with, but such is every business. And I had
Yeah.
6 people who go like, teach us what you're doing.
Oh, wow.
Right. So I was like, right, okay, this actually might work. This actually might work. So I decided to kind of like do more, put more time into it, put more effort into it. And then within a year and a half, I was like good to be part-time income. It dropped my hours into part-time hours. So at that point, again, with COVID, what's happening in the NHS, I decided to leave acute medicine and I was like, I'm just going to leave it. At that time, it wasn't a final decision, so to speak. I was like, I'm going to leave it for now and then I'll see if I want to pick it back up again.
Later, yeah.
So then I just stayed with my ICU sessions. And then for another 18 months, again, the business was growing. Life was lifing as it always does.
It does, yeah.
I get engaged and then I get to this point where right, the business is actually bringing in a full-time income for me. I can replace my income.
So you replaced it now.
Yeah, I replaced it in 3 years.
Fantastic.
And I want to get married and I want to really focus on the things that matter to me. And my husband is living in Holland, so I'm like, well, I don't want him
Juggling
to be
between countries.
exactly. So I made the decision. I was like, well, I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave.
Wow.
Maybe I'll come back.
Wow.
I don't know. But this chapter of my life is called It's About Me.
And how did your family take it? How did mommy take it?
Horribly.
Ooh.
Horribly bad. I mean, like the moment that I started the travel business, horrible, because like she was like, what are you doing? You're throwing your life away. You're giving all of your life achievements. I was like, no, I'm taking them with me. I've still got all of those
Good.
skills and they're coming with me. It's just a matter of
Good.
me doing it in a different kind of like environment. That's actually quite good for me. Quite good for my health.
Good. So you had the right perspective, and because for most doctors, we think, oh, this is what I've done all my life, and I struggle with when people ask who or what do you do or who am I? I say, oh, am I a doctor or I do medicine? And for now, I've come to a point where I say I have. So I would say I have a career portfolio, meaning that I can drop it and I can pick it instead of saying I am, because I am means I embody it. But that's a
Yeah.
conversation for another day. So for you to know that you have an ICU career, that means you can pick it up and you can leave it if you don't want to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can always go back to medicine. You can always go
Yeah.
back to doing what you used to be doing. But I got to a point
Yeah.
where I was like, okay, this chapter of my life is going to be called my life, because it's going to be about me. I don't feel that I have actually lived until that point, given everything
Yeah.
that I have been through. And yeah, the burnout was well and truly there,
Oh
and
yeah.
I was having a lot of enjoyment from the travel business. I was seeing the freedoms, and I think this is something that not a lot of us are used to. Being time free, location free, financially free is just something completely different, because what you can create in the travel business is not just the active income, but I was actually having those royalties coming in from franchising my business, that now even if I shut my phone down and decide not to work, I will still be paid. And that is
It
something.
sounds like you're living your rich life.
I am living my rich life indeed. and,
That's lovely.
and that's a
That is
really
really lovely.
that's a really great sentence that you put there, because everybody's rich life is going to look different to someone else's. And I think not a lot of people put in the time or the effort into figuring out what's important for them, and they live their life building someone else's dream and not even give their own dreams
Ooh.
any attention. And
Ooh.
yeah, and that's why I was at that point, and I was at that crossroads, and I was like, okay, well, I'm going to leave medicine and I'm going to focus on this, and I'm going to see where this is going to take me to next. And I kid you not, I left in January 23, and then somewhere around March, I have a chat with someone, and they were like, oh, so how are you finding it? And I was like, oh, actually, it just hit me that I'm out of medicine, that, that I'm not doing nights anymore, that I'm not doing weekends, that every night. And this is a really big thing of my rich life. Every night I get to sleep in my own bed.
Oh yeah, tell me about it. No out of hours, no on calls, no. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that is indeed a rich life.
that was like so important to me. Like, I don't need to request annual leave anymore.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's so simple if you listen to it, but that to me was absolutely massive. So then the
absolutely.
first year rolls on, and then the second year rolls on, and yeah, I'm still out of the NHS, still out of the job, and I'm absolutely
And
loving
you're
what I'm doing. And
thriving, you're flourishing. I mean, I saw you with your strands last time on LinkedIn. I was like, oh, James Bond has nothing on her.
absolutely, like the growth that we're seeing. And this is one of the things, again, guys, when you just let yourself take an opportunity, let yourself learn, let yourself fail, and then move
Yes.
forward, incredible things will happen. I mean, like when I started the travel business, I went to my first event, there was about 200 people in the room, and we were like, is this going to work? What's going on? What's going to happen? And now, fast forward about 4 years on from that event, we've got a room of 3,000 people that was completely sold
Wow.
out.
Wow.
And we're looking, next event that we're going to have in like April, May time, we're going to have to do 2 rooms of 3,000 people,
Wow.
because of the growth that is happening. And I'm just so incredibly excited for everybody who's working with me, and like everybody who's interested or wanting to look into this opportunity, because the
Yes.
growth that is happening over the next 2 to 5, I mean, like we've not done anything yet. Like I always say this to my business
Your
partners.
cohort. Yeah.
Nobody's made any money yet. Nobody has changed their life yet. But they were like, what do you mean?
Wow.
We've already, like,
The best is yet to come.
exactly. I've already, just this January, I've had 2 people who came out of their full-time jobs to be in the business full-time. And they were like, what do
Wow.
you mean? We've just achieved this amazing thing. And I was like,
Yeah.
strap
No,
in.
that's nothing.
Strap in is going to get far more exciting.
Ooh, now that sounds like a proper Maverick med to me. So to round up, Ola, I won't put the link of your business there so that if anybody wants to get in touch with you, by all means, they can get in touch with you. But to round up, what scares you the most today?
Unfulfilled potential.
Are you the cemetery person? Because I always say, I said, listen, the cemetery has more business ideas than
Yep.
any MBA class in the world.
Yes.
And are you hoping to die empty?
Yes. And the thought of me being on my deathbed, knowing that I have not given it my all, scares me to death. Unfulfilled potential is one of the biggest human waste ever.
And from how you are living, I have no doubt that you're going to squeeze every ounce of potential out of you, and you're leaving this world totally empty because you're going to live a very full life.
Yes.
It has been lovely having you today, Ola.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I didn't realize how many stories are going to come up, but it's just so natural to talk to you.
I enjoy storytelling, and that's what we do, isn't it? We inspire people by telling the stories, and I'm sure people out there have really learned a lot from all your stories.
Thank you so much.
So till we come away again, it's been Hannah and Ola, and it's been the Maverick Met podcast. Stay tuned. Bye for now.